I still remember the smell of smoke mixed with jasmine perfume when they dragged me into the throne room. My bare feet scraped against cold marble that had been polished by 1,000 servants, marble I used to glide across like I owned the world. Now it felt like ice burning into my skin. My heart was beating so loud I thought it would explode right there in front of everyone. In front of him. The king. My husband. The man who had whispered poetry into my ear for 20 years. The man who now held my secret Bible in his hands like it was a venomous snake. Is this yours? His voice was quiet. Too quiet. That's when I knew I was going to die. But let me take you back. Because you need to understand how a woman like me, the king's favorite wife, draped in silk and gold, envied by thousands, ended up on her knees, waiting for an execution order. You need to understand the cage I lived in. The beautiful, suffocating, golden cage. My name means gift from God in Arabic. Ironic, isn't it? Because for most of my life, I felt more like a transaction than a gift. I was 14 when they told me I was chosen. Chosen. They made it sound like an honor. The king, 30 years older than me, with 3 wives already, had seen my photograph and decided he wanted me. My father wept with joy. Actual tears streaming down his face as he kissed the king's emissary's hand. My mother started planning immediately, her hands trembling as she pulled out fabrics and jewelry I'd never seen before. You will be royalty, Habibdi, she whispered, stroking my hair that night. You will want for nothing. She was right about one thing. I wanted for nothing material. And I had nothing that mattered. The wedding was a spectacle. 10,000 guests. Fireworks that lit up the sky like the world was celebrating. I wore a dress that weighed more than I did, crystals sewn into every inch of fabric. I remember looking at myself in the mirror surrounded by 7 women adjusting my veil, painting my hands with henna, and thinking, I look like a beautiful corpse. No one asked me if I wanted this. No one asked me anything. The first night, I learned what it meant to be a possession. The king was not cruel, not physically, anyway. He was efficient. Distant. Like I was another piece of furniture in his palace, beautiful to look at but ultimately functional. When he was done, he kissed my forehead and said, You pleased me. You will do well here. You will do well here. As if I were an employee receiving a performance review. But if you're watching this right now, expecting me to say I was miserable from day one, that's not how it happened. That's not how prisons work. The truly dangerous ones make you forget you're trapped. I had everything. And I mean everything. A wing of the palace to myself, 12 rooms with ceilings so high my voice echoed when I spoke. Servants who anticipated my needs before I voiced them. Closets filled with designer abayas from Paris, jewels from India, perfumes blended specifically for my skin. I bathed in rose water. I ate off gold plates. When I walked through the palace gardens, birds literally sang in cages made of silver. Do you see the irony? Even the birds were prisoners. Just prettier ones. I learned to play the game. That's what survival looks like when you're powerless. You learn the rules, and you play them better than anyone else. I became the king's favorite not through beauty alone. The palace had dozens of beautiful women, but through strategic silence. I learned when to laugh at his jokes. When to be invisible. When to appear in his chambers wearing the perfume he liked, carrying the tea he preferred, quoting the poetry he loved. I became whatever he needed me to be. And in the process, I forgot who I actually was. The other wives hated me for it. I could feel their eyes like knives during royal dinners. The second wife, Amal, was especially venomous. Once, she leaned close during a banquet and whispered in my ear, "Beauty fades, little girl. And when it does, you'll have nothing left." At least I gave him sons. She was right to be afraid of me. Wrong about why. Because I wasn't her competition. I was already dead inside. A ghost in golden shackles. 20 years. That's how long I lived like this. 20 years of waking up in silk sheets feeling like I was suffocating. 20 years of smiling until my face hurt. 20 years of praying 5 times a day to a God who felt as distant as the stars I could see from my window but never touch. I was so empty. Do you know what that feels like? To have everything the world says should make you happy and feel absolutely nothing? I would stand on my balcony at night, overlooking gardens that took 50 men to maintain, fountains that ran with water while children in the villages died of thirst, and I would think, is this all there is? I performed my religious duties perfectly. Prayer. Fasting. Charity that made me look generous while changing nothing about my hollow existence. I read the Quran in Arabic, words I'd memorized but never felt. It was like reading a contract written in a language I didn't fully understand. Obligations. Rules. Fear of punishment. But no. No presence. No voice that spoke back. No love that filled the void. Allah is merciful, the Imam would say during palace prayers. But I felt no mercy. Only distance. Only silence. Until the night everything changed. It was raining, rare in our desert country, which made it feel apocalyptic. Thunder shaking the palace walls. And in my private chambers, with servants dismissed and doors locked, I did something I'd never done before. I cried. Not delicate tears. Not the performative sadness I'd shown at family funerals. I broke. I collapsed on that cold marble floor in my designer abaya and I sobbed until I couldn't breathe. If you're there, I screamed at the ceiling, at God, at anyone who might be listening, if you're real, show me. Because I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending. The silence that followed was deafening. But something shifted that night. I didn't know it yet, but that prayer, that desperate, rage-filled prayer, was about to be answered in a way that would cost me everything. And give me everything that actually mattered. The morning after my breakdown, I woke up with swollen eyes and a strange sensation in my chest, not peace exactly, but something like expectation. Like the air before a storm. I didn't know then that storms destroy everything in their path before they clear the sky. I was summoned to the king's private office 3 days later. Let me tell you about my husband. Because up until that moment, I'd convinced myself he was simply indifferent. Distant but not dangerous. A man too busy running a kingdom to notice the woman warming his bed. I'd built an entire survival strategy on being invisible enough to be safe, visible enough to be valued. I was so naive. When I entered his office, he was standing with his back to me, hands clasped behind him, staring out the window at the city below. Thousands of people. Millions of lives. all of them under his control. The late afternoon sun cast his shadow across the marble floor, and I remember thinking it looked like a dark stain spreading toward me. "Sit," he said without turning around. I sat on the velvet chair across from his desk, arranging my abaya, keeping my eyes downcast like a proper wife. My heart was beating faster than normal, but I didn't know why yet. Just instinct. The way an animal knows a predator is near before it sees teeth. 20 years, he finally said, turning to face me. His beard was graying now, carefully trimmed. His eyes, I'd never really looked at his eyes before. Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and realized there's nothing behind them? No warmth. No soul. Just calculation. Just cold, dark water with no bottom. 20 years you have been in this palace. In my bed. Bearing my name. Yes, my king. My voice came out steady. Years of practice. And in 20 years, you have given me nothing. The words hit like a slap. I felt my face flesh hot with shame, not because I believed I owed him children, but because that shame had been trained into me since I was 14 years old. A woman's worth is in her womb. I'd heard it 1,000 times. I have tried, I started, but he raised his hand. Silence fell like a guillotine. I did not bring you here to discuss your deficiencies. He walked to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a folder. Red. The color they used for state secrets. For accusations. For death sentences. I brought you here because I have made a decision about your future. My hands were shaking now. I clasped them together in my lap, pressing my nails into my palms until it hurt. The pain kept me present. Kept me from floating away like I used to do when reality became unbearable. He opened the folder and slid a photograph across the desk. It was a man. Maybe 50 years old. Overweight. Small, cruel eyes set too close together. Wearing the traditional dress of our neighboring kingdom, our rival kingdom. The one we'd been in political tension with for decades. His name is Governor Rashid, the king said, watching my face carefully. Widowed. Wealthy. Very influential in the northern province. He has requested a bride from our royal family as a gesture of diplomatic unity. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of the chair. You're giving me away. It wasn't a question. I am using you, he corrected, and for the first time, I heard something in his voice. Not anger. Worse. Satisfaction. For 20 years, you have been an ornament. Beautiful but useless. Now you will finally serve a purpose. The marriage will happen in 6 weeks. You will produce heirs for him, and through those heirs, we will have influence in the north. You should be grateful I didn't simply divorce you in disgrace. Have you ever felt your entire world collapse in the space of a heartbeat? Everything I'd sacrificed, my youth, my autonomy, my soul, condensed into one sentence, beautiful but useless. I stood up. I don't know where the courage came from. Maybe it was rage. Maybe it was the last gasp of a dying woman. I am your wife. He laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was like glass breaking. You are my property. There is a difference. And I do with my property as I see fit. The other wives. The other wives gave me sons. You gave me nothing but 2 decades of barrenness and expensive taste. He closed the folder with a sharp snap. The decision is final. You will smile. You will obey. You will represent this kingdom with dignity. Or I will make your remaining days in this palace so unbearable, you will beg to be given away. I saw it then. The real man behind the poetry and the gentleness and the facade. This was who he'd always been. I just hadn't been important enough to warrant his cruelty before. Now I was an obstacle. A failure. Something to be discarded strategically. And if I refuse? The words came out as a whisper. He stood up slowly, walked around the desk, and stood so close I could smell his cologne, oud mixed with something sharp and medicinal. He grabbed my chin, forcing me to look up at him. His grip was painful. Bruising. Then you will refuse from a prison cell, after I have you arrested for, let's say, theft. Or perhaps adultery, so easy to fabricate witnesses. Your family will be disgraced. Your father will lose his position. Your mother will die of shame. And you will still marry Governor Rashid. The only difference is you'll go to him broken. He released me with a small shove. I stumbled backward. You have 6 weeks to prepare. Make the most of them. I don't remember walking back to my chambers. I don't remember the servants bowing as I passed. I don't remember anything except the ringing in my ears and the taste of blood in my mouth from biting my tongue to keep from screaming. When I finally closed the door to my room, my golden cage that had just become a holding cell, I collapsed. Not crying this time. Crying requires hope that things could be different. This was something else. Something deeper. I laid on that cold floor and felt my soul start to detach from my body. Like I was watching myself from the ceiling. This is what death feels like, I thought. Not the body stopping. The person inside giving up. Hours passed. Maybe days. I stopped eating. Stopped speaking to servants. They brought food, I didn't touch it. They drew baths, I didn't take them. The head servant, Miriam, an older woman who'd been kind to me over the years, finally sat beside me on the 3rd day. My lady, she whispered, stroking my hair like my mother used to. You must eat something. Why? My voice sounded foreign. Hollow. She didn't have an answer. That night, alone in the darkness, I did something I hadn't done since I was a child. I prayed without the ritual. Without the Arabic phrases I'd memorized. Without the prostrations and the ablutions and the performance. I just talked. Into the void. Into the darkness. If there is a God anywhere who actually cares about women like me, I need you. I need you now. Because I have nothing left. I am nothing. And I would rather die than become his property too. The silence that followed felt different than before. Not empty. Full. Like someone was listening but not answering yet. Like a presence holding its breath. I didn't know it then, but that prayer was about to lead me somewhere forbidden. Somewhere dangerous. Somewhere that would eventually get me dragged into a throne room with smoke and fear and my secret Bible in the king's hands. But we're not there yet. First, I had to find the truth. And the truth was hidden in a place I never thought to look. 6 weeks. 42 days. 1,008 hours until I would be handed over like livestock to a man whose eyes looked dead in a photograph. I became obsessed with counting. Counting the hours. Counting the tiles on my ceiling at night when sleep wouldn't come. Counting the number of prayers I'd said in my life that had bounced off heaven's ceiling and fallen back down like stones. I threw myself into religion like a drowning woman throws herself at driftwood. If you're Muslim, or if you were raised Muslim, you know what I'm talking about. That desperate bargaining. That frantic arithmetic. If I pray more perfectly, if I fast longer, if I give more charity, if I memorize more Quran, then maybe Allah will intervene. Maybe he'll change the king's mind. Maybe he'll strike Governor Rashid dead. Maybe he'll do something. I started waking up for Tahajjud, the pre-dawn prayer that's supposed to be the most powerful, when Allah descends to the lowest heaven to hear his servants. I would stand on my prayer mat in the freezing darkness, forehead pressed to the ground, and I would beg. Please, I whispered into the carpet, my tears making dark spots on the silk. Please change his heart. Please make me invisible. Please kill me before the wedding. Anything. Just don't let this happen. Silence. The call to prayer would sound across the city, that haunting, beautiful sound I'd heard 5 times a day for my entire life, and I would feel absolutely nothing. Just emptiness. Just the same walls echoing back my own voice. I increased my charity. I started giving away my jewelry, my clothes, my expensive perfumes to the servants. Miriam looked at me with worried eyes. My lady, what are you doing? Buying favor with God, I said, handing her a diamond bracelet worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. Isn't that how it works? Good deeds. The scales. Heaven and hell. But the scales felt rigged. I was doing everything right, everything I'd been taught since childhood, and God felt further away than ever. I went to see the palace imam on the 27th day. I'd never gone to him privately before. Women didn't usually do that, didn't seek private counsel with male religious authorities. But I was desperate. I didn't care about propriety anymore. He received me in his study, a room lined with ancient books and smelling of incense and old paper. He was a thin man with a long beard dyed with henna, hands that trembled slightly when he poured tea. Kind eyes, I thought. Surely kind eyes meant wisdom. Sheikh, I said, sitting across from him with my abaya wrapped tight around me, voice shaking. I need help. I've been praying for weeks. Begging Allah to change my situation. But nothing changes. The silence it's breaking me. What am I doing wrong? He sipped his tea thoughtfully, looking at me with what I thought was compassion. Sister, Allah's wisdom is beyond our understanding. Perhaps this marriage is the answer to prayers you haven't prayed yet. Perhaps this is your test. My test? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. To be traded like cattle to a man I've never met. To leave the only home I've known for 20 years because I failed to produce sons? This is a test of my faith? Everything is a test of faith, he said gently. Obedience to your husband is obedience to Allah. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said that if a woman dies and her husband is pleased with her, she enters Jannah. Your duty is clear. I stared at him. Waiting for more. Waiting for comfort. waiting for something that felt like actual divine love instead of divine transaction. So my only value is in pleasing men? In obedience? What about what Allah wants for me? His eyes shifted. Less kind now. More guarded. Sister, be careful. These questions lead to dangerous places. Submit to Allah's will. Submit to your husband's authority. This is the path. I left his study feeling more alone than when I'd entered. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I prayed the way the sheikh told me not to. I stopped using the formal Arabic. I stopped prostrating. I just sat on my balcony under the stars, those distant, cold stars that saw everything and did nothing, and I spoke like I was talking to an actual person. I don't understand you, I said into the darkness. They say you're merciful, but where's the mercy in this? They say you're close, but I've never felt more abandoned. They say you hear prayers, but mine just disappear into nothing. What do you want from me? What am I supposed to do? The wind picked up, rustling through the garden palms below. Just wind. No voice. No sign. No burning bush or angel or miraculous answer. Just silence. I stopped eating again. Not intentionally this time, food just tasted like ash. Everything tasted like ash. The servants whispered when they thought I couldn't hear. She's wasting away. She'll be skin and bones for the wedding. The king will be furious. Let him be furious. What could he do to me that was worse than what he'd already done? Amal, the second wife, came to visit me on day 33. She'd never visited my chambers before. We weren't friends. We were competitors trapped in the same prison, too busy surviving to build alliances. She sat on the edge of my bed, studying my face. I must have looked terrible, sunken eyes, hollow cheeks, hair I hadn't brushed in days. You look like a corpse, she said bluntly. Thank you for the observation. I didn't come here to mock you. She was quiet for a moment, playing with the edge of her hijab. I came to tell you that I understand. What it feels like to pray and hear nothing. To do everything right and still be empty. I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in years. She looked tired. Older than her age. 3 sons, and she still looked beaten down by life. You have everything they say we're supposed to want, I said. Sons. The king's respect. Status. And I'm still a prisoner, she said softly. Just a prisoner with better reasons for being here. The cage is still a cage, even if they call it a palace. She stood up, smoothed her abaya. I won't tell you it gets better. It doesn't. You just learn to die slowly instead of all at once. That's what we do. We die by degrees until there's nothing left but obedience. After she left, I sat in the dark for hours. Die by degrees. That's exactly what I'd been doing for 20 years. Little deaths. Daily deaths. The death of hope. The death of identity. The death of the girl I might have been if anyone had ever asked what I wanted. And God, Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, watched it all happen and did nothing. That's when something inside me broke. Not broke like before, with tears and rage. Broke clean. Like a bone snapping. A final severance. You're not there, are you? I said into the darkness. Not angry anymore. Just numb. Or you are there and you don't care. Either way, I'm alone. I've always been alone. It was the most honest prayer I'd ever prayed. The most blasphemous. The most true. And in that moment of absolute abandonment, something shifted. A thought appeared in my mind, so foreign, so strange, I almost dismissed it immediately. What if you've been praying to the wrong God? I physically shook my head, trying to dislodge the thought. Blasphemy. That was blasphemy. There is no God but Allah. I'd said it 10,000 times. It was the foundation of everything I'd been taught. But the thought wouldn't leave. It sat there in my mind like a seed. Small. Persistent. Dangerous. What if? The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I went to the palace library, a massive, dusty place filled with books no one read anymore. The king collected them as status symbols, not for actual knowledge. Thousands of volumes in dozens of languages. I told myself I was just looking for poetry. For something to distract me. For anything to fill the void of the remaining 9 days. But my feet carried me to a section I'd never explored. Foreign books. English. French. German. Books about other countries, other religions, other ways of seeing God. And there, tucked between a volume on European history and a book of Persian poetry, I found it. A Bible. Small. Leather-bound. English and Arabic in parallel columns. Someone had hidden it there, or forgotten it there. Either way, it was forbidden. Dangerous. Illegal in the palace. Illegal in the entire kingdom. Christians were barely tolerated here. Their books were absolutely forbidden. I looked around. The library was empty. Just me and the dust and the silent rows of forbidden knowledge. My hand was shaking when I pulled it from the shelf. It felt heavier than it should have. Or maybe that was just my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I opened it to a random page. The Arabic words stared back at me, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." I slammed it shut. Shoved it back on the shelf. Walked away. But I couldn't stop thinking about those words. Come to me. Not obey perfectly. Not submit without question. Not earn your way. Just come. That night, I dreamed about gardens and water and a voice saying my name. Not my legal name. Not my title. My name. The one my mother called me when I was a child. The one no one had used in 20 years. When I woke up, I knew I had to go back. The Bible was calling me. Or something was. Something that felt like the answer to the question I'd been asking wrong my whole life. I had 8 days left before the wedding. 8 days to discover what would eventually cost me everything. And save me from the death I'd been dying for 20 years. I went back to the library the next day. And the day after that. And the day after that. Each time, my heart hammered so violently I thought the librarian, an elderly man who spent most of his time sleeping at his desk, would hear it from across the room. Each time, I told myself I would just read one page. Just one verse. Just satisfy this strange, burning curiosity and then put it away forever. But you can't just read one page of water when you're dying of thirst. I developed a routine. I would go during the afternoon prayer, when the palace emptied out, when everyone was on their knees facing Mecca. The irony wasn't lost on me. While they prayed to Allah, I was reading about someone else. Someone named Jesus. Isa in Arabic, I'd heard his name before, of course. He was a prophet in Islam. Respected but not worshipped. Important but not divine. The Bible said something completely different. I would tuck the small book into my abaya, slip into the library's back corner where the afternoon light came through stained glass windows, and I would read. My hands shook the first few times. I kept expecting someone to burst in, to catch me, to drag me before the king with this evidence of my betrayal. But no one came. It was just me and these strange, dangerous words. The first thing that struck me was how different it sounded from the Quran. The Quran was formal, commanding, structured like a legal document from heaven. Beautiful in Arabic, but distant. Always distant. This book felt like letters. Like someone was speaking directly to me. Not commanding. Inviting. I read about a God who became human. Who touched lepers. Who let prostitutes wash his feet with their tears. Who ate with outcasts and defended women about to be stoned to death. Who cried when his friend died. Who got angry at religious hypocrites. Who loved people. Actually, tangibly loved them. Not as subjects. Not as slaves. Not as property. As children. On the third day of reading, I found something that made me stop breathing. It was in a book called John. Chapter 8. A woman, caught in adultery, dragged before Jesus by men who wanted to stone her to death according to the law. They asked him, "Should we kill her?" That's what Moses commanded. And Jesus, Isa, said something that shattered me. Let the one without sin throw the first stone. One by one, the men dropped their stones and walked away. Until it was just Jesus and the woman. Alone. And he asked her, "Where are your accusers?" "They're gone, Lord." "Then neither do I condemn you. Go, and sin no more." I read it 3 times. 4 times. 5 times. The Arabic words blurred through my tears. Neither do I condemn you. This God, this Jesus, had the authority to condemn her. The legal right. The moral high ground. And he chose not to. He chose mercy. He chose to see her as a person, not a crime. He protected her from the men who wanted to use religion as an excuse for violence. I thought about every imam I'd ever heard preach about women's modesty, women's obedience, women's shame. About how we were always the problem, the temptation, the fitna, the reason men stumbled. About how my barrenness was probably punishment for some secrets and I didn't even know I'd committed. And here was a God who stood between an accused woman and her executioners and said, "No. Not today. Not ever." I closed the book and pressed it against my chest, rocking back and forth in that dusty corner. If someone had walked in, they would have thought I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Maybe discovering you've been praying to the wrong address for 34 years does that to you. Who are you? I whispered to the book, to Jesus, to whoever might be listening. Who are you really? I started smuggling the Bible to my chambers. I know how insane that was. If anyone found it, I would be arrested. Possibly executed for apostasy. At minimum, I'd be divorced in disgrace, my family would be destroyed, and I'd still end up married to Governor Rashid, just with even less power than before. But I couldn't stop. It was like an addiction. Every spare moment, I was reading. I would lock my door, tell the servants I was resting, and I would devour page after page. I read about Jesus healing the sick, not for money, not for status, just because he had compassion. I read about him feeding thousands with a few loaves of bread. I read about him calming storms with his voice. I read about him raising dead people back to life. And then I read about him dying. Crucified. Tortured. Killed. For a moment, I thought, see? Even this God couldn't save himself. What makes him different? But then I kept reading. And 3 days later, he came back. Rose from the dead. Conquered death itself. The tomb was empty. Death couldn't hold him. I sat on my bed staring at those words for an hour. If this was true, if any of this was true, then everything I'd been taught was wrong. Allah was distant, unreachable, transactional. You obeyed perfectly or you burned in hell. The scales had to balance. Your good deeds had to outweigh your bad ones, and even then, you couldn't be sure. Even Muhammad himself wasn't sure he'd make it to paradise. But this Jesus said something completely different. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Not through perfect prayers. Not through ritual. Not through being born in the right family or obeying the right rules. Through him. Through relationship. Through love. It was too good to be true. It had to be. Nothing in my life had ever worked like that. On day 6 before the wedding, 6 days left of freedom before I was shipped off to Governor Rashid, I found a verse that broke me completely. Matthew 11 verse 28. The same verse I'd glimpsed that first day in the library, but now I read the whole context. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I read it out loud, my voice cracking. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. I was so weary. So burdened. 20 years of performing. 20 years of dying by degrees. 20 years of trying to be good enough, pure enough, obedient enough. And I was still drowning. And I will give you rest. Rest. When was the last time I'd felt rest? Real rest? Not sleep, rest. Peace. The absence of fear and striving and endless, crushing obligation. For I am gentle and humble in heart. Gentle. The king wasn't gentle. Allah, the way I'd been taught about Allah, wasn't gentle. He was just. He was powerful. He was distant. But gentle? Humble? Those weren't words I associated with God. I closed the Bible and held it in my lap, my whole body shaking. Jesus, I whispered, testing the name on my tongue, tasting it like forbidden fruit. If you're real, if any of this is real, I need you. I need rest. I need to know I'm not alone in this. I need. My voice broke. I couldn't finish the sentence because I didn't know what I needed. Everything. Nothing. Salvation from a life I never chose. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the Bible hidden under my mattress like contraband, which it was. My mind was at war with itself. Everything I'd been taught screamed that this was heresy. Shirk. The unforgivable sin of making partners with Allah. Christians worshipped three gods, I'd been told. They corrupted the scriptures. They were misguided at best, damned at worst. But what if they weren't? What if I was the one who'd been misguided? What if I'd spent 34 years praying to a God who couldn't hear me because I was calling the wrong name? I don't know what to do, I said into the darkness. Not to Allah anymore. To whoever was listening. I'm so confused. I'm so tired. If you're real, Jesus, you need to show me. Because I can't do this on my own. I can't figure this out from a book. I need you. It was the most honest prayer I'd ever prayed. No ritual. No Arabic formulas. No prostrations. Just desperation. Just a broken woman talking to a God she wasn't even sure existed. I fell asleep waiting for an answer. And that night, I got one. The dream started like all my other dreams, confused fragments of anxiety about the wedding, about Governor Rashid, about the king's cold eyes. But then the scenery shifted. I was in a garden. Not the palace gardens, somewhere else. Somewhere with grass so green it hurt to look at. Trees I didn't recognize. Flowers that smelled like heaven must smell. And light. So much light, but it didn't hurt my eyes. It was warm. Safe. And then I saw him. A man. Standing near a fountain of clear water. He was wearing simple white robes. Dark hair. Kind eyes. Eyes that saw everything, every secret, every sin, every broken piece of me, and somehow didn't look away in disgust. He smiled. I've been waiting for you. His voice was like water after a lifetime of thirst. Like coming home after being lost. Like being known for the first time in your existence. Who are you? I whispered, even though I already knew. You know who I am. He held out his hand. You've been calling my name for days. Jesus? Yes. I fell to my knees. Not in prostration, I'd done that empty ritual 1,000 times. This was different. This was awe. This was encountering something so far beyond me, so holy, so real, that my body couldn't do anything but collapse. I'm not good enough, I choked out. I'm broken. I'm trapped. I'm being given away like property in 6 days and I can't stop it. I can't save myself. I've tried everything and I'm still. I know, he said gently, kneeling down to my level. His hands, I'll never forget his hands, they had scars. Holes where nails had been driven through. I know everything. That's why I'm here. Not to demand more from you. To offer you what you can't earn. What? I looked up at him through tears. Freedom. Rest. Love without conditions. A yoke that's easy and a burden that's light. He touched my face, just a gentle touch to my cheek, and I felt something break loose inside my chest. Something that had been locked away for so long I'd forgotten it was there. Hope. But I don't deserve. None of us do. That's why I died. That's why I rose. So that you don't have to be good enough. You just have to be mine. I woke up gasping, tears streaming down my face, my heart pounding like I'd been running. The early morning call to prayer was sounding across the city. The servants would come soon to wake me. But I wasn't the same woman who'd fallen asleep the night before. I reached under my mattress and pulled out the Bible. Opened it to a random page, and my eyes fell on these words in red, Jesus speaking. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, trust also in me. I trust you, I whispered. I don't understand you. I don't know what happens next. But I trust you. You're real. You saw me. You know me. And if you're offering freedom, then yes. Whatever it costs. Yes. I didn't know it then, but that yes was about to cost me everything. And 5 days later, it would lead to the most terrifying, miraculous moment of my life. The next 4 days were the strangest of my life. I was preparing for a wedding I didn't want while simultaneously falling in love with a God I wasn't supposed to know. During the day, I smiled for the seamstresses who fitted my wedding dress, blood red silk, traditional for our culture, ironic given what was coming. At night, I locked my door and read the Bible by candlelight until my eyes burned. I was living 2 lives. The woman the palace saw, obedient, resigned, properly submissive. And the woman I was becoming in secret, hungry, desperate, completely undone by this Jesus who'd appeared in my dream. But I needed more than a dream. If you're watching this, you understand, don't you? Dreams fade. Memory gets fuzzy. Doubt creeps in. I needed something concrete. Something undeniable. Something that would sustain me through what was coming. I needed to hear his voice again. On the second to last night before the wedding, my final night of freedom before I would be locked in ceremonial seclusion, I did something reckless. The servants had finally left after hours of preparations. My chambers were filled with trunks packed for the journey north. Wedding gifts from officials I'd never met. Jewelry that felt like shackles. I pushed it all aside, locked every door, and I got on my knees in the center of my room with the Bible open in front of me. Jesus, I said out loud, my voice shaking. I know I'm new at this. I know I don't know the right words or the right way to pray. But you said to come to you. You said your burden was light. So here I am. Coming. Bringing all of this, my voice cracked, all of this mess and fear and brokenness. If you're real, if that dream was real, I need you to show me again. Because tomorrow they lock me away for purification rituals, and the day after that, I belong to another man. And I can't. I can't do this alone. Silence. Just the sound of my own breathing. The distant fountain in the garden below. My heart sinking with each passing second. Maybe I'd imagined it all. Maybe the dream was just stress. Maybe I was losing my mind and the Bible was just another book and I was still alone, still trapped, still. The air changed. I don't know how else to describe it. The temperature didn't drop or rise. Nothing visible shifted. But the atmosphere in that room transformed. Like the difference between being in an empty house and suddenly realizing someone else is there. Presence. Heavy, undeniable presence. And then I felt it. Warmth spreading through my chest like liquid gold. Not painful, the opposite of pain. Like every broken thing inside me was being touched by light. Like being seen through and loved anyway. Like coming up for air after drowning for 34 years. I am here. The voice didn't come from outside me. It came from everywhere and nowhere. From inside my chest and all around me simultaneously. It was the same voice from the dream. The same tone. The same love that I'd tasted for one moment in that garden. Jesus. I started sobbing. Not sad crying, something else. Something I'd never experienced. Joy and grief and relief and all mixed together until I couldn't tell one from the other. I collapsed forward, forehead on the ground, and I just wept. I'm so afraid, I gasped between sobs. I'm so afraid of what's coming. Of Governor Rashid. Of losing everything. Of dying before I really live. I know. The presence grew stronger, warmer. I have always known. Every tear you cried thinking no one saw, I saw. Every prayer you prayed thinking no one heard, I heard. Every night you wanted to die, I was there, holding you together, waiting for you to find me. Why didn't you come sooner? The question burst out before I could stop it. Why did I have to suffer for so long? Because you weren't ready to see me until you knew you were dying. His voice was so gentle it hurt. You tried everything else first. Every other God. Every other solution. You had to come to the end of yourself before you could find me. That's where I do my best work, in the ashes. In the ruins. In the impossible places where human effort fails. I lifted my head, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't see him physically, but I could feel him. Closer than my own breath. More real than the marble floor beneath me. What do I do? They're going to give me away. I can't stop it. I have no power here. You have more power than you know. There was something in his voice now, not quite sadness, but weight. The weight of knowing what was coming. Tomorrow night, they will come for you. They will take you to the purification chamber for the final rituals. And in that place, where you are most trapped, most helpless, most alone, I will meet you again. My breath caught. What's going to happen? Do you trust me? It was the same question he'd asked in the dream. And somehow, impossibly, my answer was the same. Yes. Then trust me with tomorrow. Trust me with the wedding. Trust me with your life. The warmth in my chest intensified. I didn't save you from drowning just to let you be swept away by another flood. I have plans for you. Plans you can't see yet. A purpose that will cost you everything and give you everything that matters. I don't understand. You don't have to understand. You just have to hold on to me. No matter what happens tomorrow. No matter what they do to you or take from you or threaten you with, hold on to me. Can you do that? I was shaking. Terrified. But underneath the fear was something else. Something solid. Something that felt like bedrock beneath quicksand. Yes. I can do that. Then you're ready. The presence didn't leave all at once. It faded slowly, like sunset, until I was alone again in my room. But I wasn't the same. Something fundamental had shifted. I'd been touched by something, someone from outside this world. And now I carried him inside me. In my chest. In my breath. In my bones. I opened the Bible again, hands still shaking, and my eyes fell on a verse in Isaiah. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you, I have summoned you by name, you are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, the flames will not set you ablaze. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. When you walk through the fire. A chill ran down my spine. Why fire? Why was that the image that appeared? I closed the Bible and sat in the dark, that phrase echoing in my mind. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. I didn't know it then, but those words were about to become terrifyingly literal. They came for me the next morning. 6 women, ritual attendants, dressed in white. They stripped my chambers of everything personal. No books. No jewelry. No distractions. Just white cotton robes and the purification chamber where I would spend the next 24 hours in fasting and ritual cleansing before the wedding. The chamber was underground. Cold stone walls. A single oil lamp. A prayer mat facing Mecca. A basin of water for ablutions. Nothing else. This was where brides went to be purified before being given to their husbands. 24 hours of isolation and prayer to make you worthy. I'd been through this before, 20 years ago, before my wedding to the king. Then, I'd been a terrified 14-year-old who'd cried herself sick. Now I was a different kind of terrified. But I wasn't alone this time. They locked the door behind me. The sound of the bolt sliding into place echoed in the small chamber. I was trapped. Completely and utterly trapped. I sat on the prayer mat, wrapped in the thin white robe, and I waited. Hours passed. No food. No water. Just silence and cold and the dim flicker of the oil lamp. I tried to pray the Muslim prayers out of habit, but the words felt like stones in my mouth. Empty. Dead. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't pretend. Instead, I did what Jesus had taught me. I just talked. I'm here, I whispered. You said you'd meet me here. I'm holding on. I'm trusting you. But I'm scared. I'm so scared. Night fell. I could tell by the temperature drop. The lamp flickered, casting dancing shadows on the stone walls. And then I heard footsteps approaching. Multiple sets. Heavy boots on stone. Men's voices. Angry voices. The door burst open. The king stood there. Behind him, 3 guards. And in his hand, My Bible. The small leather-bound Bible I'd hidden under my mattress. Someone had found it. Someone had betrayed me. His face was a mask of cold fury. "Is this yours?" My mouth went dry. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. He stepped into the chamber, and the guards followed. The door slammed shut behind them. "I asked you a question. Is this yours?" Every instinct screamed at me to deny it. To lie. To say someone planted it. To save myself. But then I heard it, not audibly, but clear as a voice in my mind, "Hold on to me." I lifted my chin. Looked him in the eyes. Yes. The slap came so fast I didn't see it. My head snapped to the side, blood filling my mouth. I fell against the stone wall, vision blurring. 20 years, he hissed, grabbing my hair and yanking my head back. 20 years I gave you everything. And you repay me with apostasy? With betrayal? With this, he threw the Bible on the ground, this Christian filth? "It's not filth," I said, blood dripping from my lip. "It's truth." He backhanded me again. I tasted copper. Felt my cheek split open. "You will denounce this. Now. You will testify that you were confused, deceived by Satan. You will burn this book and beg Allah's forgiveness. Or I will have you executed for apostasy before the sun rises." The chamber spun. My ears rang. But underneath the pain and terror, I felt it, that same warmth in my chest. That same presence. "Hold on." "No," I whispered. "What did you say?" I looked up at him through the blood and tears. I said no. I won't denounce him. I won't burn the book. Jesus is real. He loves me. And nothing you do can change that. The king's face went purple with rage. He picked up the Bible, threw it into the corner, and pulled out a lighter. "Then burn with it." He lit the corner of the Bible. Flames licked up the pages. My heart screamed. But then he did something worse. He grabbed me by the throat, dragged me toward the burning book, and said, "Put your hand in the fire. If your Jesus is real, let him save you." The guards held my arms. The king forced my hand toward the flames. I could feel the heat. Smell the burning paper. This was it. The moment. The fire I'd been warned about. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. I closed my eyes. Jesus, help me. And then it happened. Light. Blinding, pure, impossible light that filled the entire chamber. Not from the lamp. Not from the fire. From everywhere. From nowhere. The guards shouted and fell backward. The king released me, stumbling, shielding his eyes. And in the center of the light, I saw him. Jesus. Not a vision. Not a dream. Him. Standing between me and the flames. His hand reached out and touched the burning Bible, and the fire went out. Just stopped. Like it had never been. He turned to me, and his eyes were full of love and power and something fierce that made the king's fury look like a child's tantrum. "Stand up, beloved. You are mine." And no one takes what belongs to me. I stood. I don't know how. My legs shouldn't have held me. But I stood. The king was on his knees, face white as death, staring at the figure made of light. What is this? Jesus turned to him. And when he spoke, his voice shook the walls. You do not touch her. She is under my protection. And if you try to harm her again, you will answer to me. Then he looked at me one more time, smiled, and vanished. The light faded. The chamber was dark again except for the lamp. The Bible lay in the corner, singed at the edges but not destroyed. Not even mostly burned. Impossible. It should have been ash. The king and the guards stared at it. At me. At each other. Terror written on every face. I stood there, blood on my face, hand unburned, heart pounding, and I knew everything had just changed. For 10 seconds, maybe 20, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was our ragged breathing echoing off the stone walls. The king stared at the Bible that should have been ashes. At me, standing when I should have been broken. At the space where the light had been. His hands were shaking. I'd never seen him afraid before. In 20 years of marriage, I'd seen him angry, cold, calculating, even amused. But never afraid. Kings don't fear anything. They have armies. They have power. They have the authority to kill with a word. But he'd just seen something that all his power couldn't explain. Couldn't control. Couldn't dismiss. One of the guards, a young man, maybe 25, backed toward the door, his face pale as death. Jinn, he whispered. Dark magic. We need the Imam. We need. Silence. The king's voice cracked like a whip, but it didn't have the same authority anymore. It sounded like a man trying to convince himself. It was a trick. A trick of the light. The lamp, it must have. The lamp was behind you, I said quietly. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded stronger. Clearer. Like someone else was speaking through me. The light came from everywhere. You saw him. You all saw him. I saw nothing. But the king's eyes betrayed him. He'd seen. He knew he'd seen. And it terrified him. He picked up the Bible from the corner with shaking hands, holding it like it might explode. The edges were singed black, but the pages were intact. He'd held flame to it for at least 30 seconds. It should have been destroyed. This proves nothing. You practiced some Christian sorcery. You deceived. Then burn it again, I said. The words came out before I could think them through. Before fear could stop me. The same voice. The same strength that wasn't mine. If it was a trick, burn it again. Right now. Prove it. The king stared at me. The guards stared at me. I could see the calculation in his eyes. If he burned it and nothing happened, he'd look foolish. If he burned it and something did happen again. He threw the Bible at my feet. You will renounce this. Tomorrow. Before the wedding. Before all the royal court. You will testify that you were deceived by Christian missionaries, that you have repented, and you will marry Governor Rashid as planned. This incident will be forgotten. No, I said. His face went dark. No. I will not renounce Jesus. I will not lie about what happened here. And my voice was shaking now, but I couldn't stop. I will not marry Governor Rashid. I belong to Jesus now. Not to you. Not to any man who thinks he owns me. For a moment, I thought he would kill me right there. His hand went to the dagger at his belt. The guards tensed. The air was thick with violence about to break. But then something stopped him. Maybe the memory of that light. Maybe the fear that if he touched me, something worse would happen. Maybe just the shock that his obedient, broken wife had suddenly grown a spine made of steel. Lock her in here, he said to the guards, his voice cold as ice. No food. No water. No light. Let her spend the night in darkness with her foreign god. Tomorrow morning, we'll see if he still protects her when she's dragged before the court for apostasy. Then we'll see if she recants. He stormed out. The guards followed, taking the lamp with them. The door slammed shut. The bolt slid home with a final, terrible sound. And I was alone in absolute darkness. Have you ever been in complete darkness? Not just a dark room where your eyes adjust. I mean absolute, total blackness where you can't see your hand in front of your face. Where you lose sense of up and down. Where your mind starts playing tricks because it has no input to process. That's where I was. Underground. Locked in stone. No light. No sound except my own breathing. Cold seeping into my bones. And tomorrow morning, execution. That's what apostasy meant in this kingdom. Public trial, public renunciation, or public death. I should have been terrified. I should have been banging on the door, screaming for mercy, begging to take it all back. But I wasn't. I felt peace. That's the only word for it. Completely illogical, impossible peace. Like someone had wrapped me in invisible arms and whispered, "I've got you." I knelt down in the darkness, feeling for the Bible. My fingers found the singed leather. I pulled it to my chest and held it there. Jesus, I whispered. I don't know what happens tomorrow. But thank you. Thank you for being real. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for seeing me. Even if tomorrow is my last day. I'm yours. I choose you. I will always choose you. And then, in that pitch-black chamber, I saw light again. Not the blinding brightness from before. Softer. Gentler. Like dawn breaking. It didn't come from any source, it just existed. Pushing back the darkness. Filling the chamber with warm, golden glow. Jesus was there. Sitting beside me on the stone floor. Fully present. Fully real. So real I could see the texture of his robes, the individual strands of his hair, the compassion in his eyes. You did well, he said softly. I started crying. Not from fear this time. From relief. From love. From the overwhelming reality that the God of the universe was sitting with me in my prison cell. I'm going to die tomorrow, I said through tears. Maybe, he said. Maybe not. Does it matter? I thought about that. Really thought about it. 24 hours ago, death was my greatest fear. Now. No, I said slowly. It doesn't. Because even if they kill me, I'm still yours. Death can't separate me from you. You already conquered death. He smiled. The most beautiful smile I've ever seen. Now you understand. This is what freedom looks like. Not the absence of suffering. Not the absence of consequences. But the presence of me in the middle of it all. They can take your comfort. They can take your safety. They can even take your life. But they cannot take this. He placed his hand over my heart. They cannot take what I've given you. You are free. Finally, completely free. What do I do tomorrow? I asked. Tell the truth. His hand was still on my heart, and I could feel warmth radiating from it. Tell them what you've seen. Tell them what I've done. Tell them who I am. Leave the results to me. They won't believe me. Some will. Some won't. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is obedience, faithfulness, courage. I'll handle the rest. He stood up, pulling me to my feet with him. And I'm going to give you something tomorrow. Something undeniable. Something that will make it impossible for them to dismiss what's happening. But you have to trust me. Even when it looks like you're losing, you have to trust that I'm winning. I trust you, I said. And I meant it with every fiber of my being. He pulled me into an embrace. Not romantic, paternal. Protective. The embrace of a father who delights in his daughter. The embrace I'd been looking for my entire life. I buried my face in his shoulder and sobbed, 20 years of pain and loneliness and fear pouring out. I know, he whispered, holding me. I know all of it. Every wound. Every betrayal. Every night you cried yourself to sleep. I was collecting every tear. And tomorrow, I'm going to turn them into testimony. Into proof. Into freedom, not just for you, but for everyone who witnesses what I'm about to do. He released me, and I stepped back. Will I see you again? After tomorrow? You'll see me every day. Maybe not with these eyes. But I'll be there. In the whisper. In the sunrise. In the stranger who helps you. In the strength you don't have on your own. I'm not going anywhere. Ever. He touched my face gently, wiping away a tear. Now rest. Tomorrow, we go to war. The light faded. But this time, the darkness didn't feel oppressive. It felt like a cocoon. Like the moment before birth. Like waiting for resurrection. I curled up on the floor, the Bible clutched to my chest, and I slept. Actually slept. Deep, restful, impossible sleep in a prison cell the night before my execution. Because I wasn't alone. They came for me at dawn. 6 guards this time. More than necessary for one unarmed woman. But they'd seen what happened. They were afraid. They dragged me through the palace corridors, not gently. My white robe was filthy, torn. My face was still bruised and bloody from the king's beating. My hair was matted. I looked like exactly what I was, a prisoner. But I walked with my head up. The throne room was packed. The entire royal court had been summoned. Officials. Religious leaders. The other wives. I caught Amal's eye for just a moment, and I saw something there. Not hatred. Curiosity. Maybe even hope. The Imam stood near the king's throne, looking grave and righteous. Governor Rashid was there too, standing in the corner, confusion written on his fat face. And the king sat on his throne, looking at me with eyes that promised death. The room fell silent as they forced me to my knees in the center of the marble floor. The Grand Imam stepped forward, unrolling a scroll. The woman known as the king's third wife stands accused of apostasy, of renouncing Islam, of embracing Christianity. These are capital offenses. The penalty is death. He looked at me with something almost like pity. However, Islamic law permits mercy for those who repent. Confess your sin. Renounce this false prophet Jesus. Return to Islam. And you will be spared. Every eye in the room fixed on me. Waiting. Watching. The king leaned forward on his throne. I took a deep breath. Felt that warmth in my chest. That presence. That promise, tell the truth. Leave the results to me. I will not renounce Jesus, I said clearly. Loudly. My voice echoed off the vaulted ceiling. Because he is not a false prophet. He is the Son of God. He died for my sins. He rose from the dead. And 2 nights ago, in the purification chamber, he appeared to me. In front of witnesses. I looked directly at the king. He stopped fire with his hand. He filled that room with light. And he told me I belonged to him. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The Imam's face went red. Blasphemy. This is, ask the guards. I said, my voice rising. Ask the king himself. They saw it. The Bible should have burned to ash, but Jesus saved it. Just like he saved me. Just like he'll save anyone who calls on his name. Lies. The king stood up, rage and fear warring on his face. The woman is disturbed. Delusional. She saw nothing. No one saw anything. This is. Then let God prove it, I said. The room went silent again. I stood up. No one had given me permission, but I stood anyway. If Jesus is not real, then let me be executed according to your law. But if he is real, let him show you. Right here. Right now. Let him prove that he is who he says he is. The Imam looked at the king. The king's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. This was a trap, my trap. If they killed me now, I became a martyr. If they waited for God to prove himself and nothing happened, I'd be humiliated and then executed. But if something did happen. Very well, the king said slowly. Let your God prove himself. You have 60 seconds. If nothing happens, you die where you stand. The guards unsheathed their swords. Surrounded me. 60 seconds. 1 minute for God to move or for me to die. I closed my eyes. Not in fear. In prayer. Jesus, you said you'd give me something undeniable. I'm trusting you. Show them who you are. 30 seconds passed. The crowd murmured. Someone laughed nervously. 45 seconds. The guards moved closer. I could hear steel sliding against leather scabbards. 50 seconds. The king smiled coldly. Your time is. The ground shook. Not metaphorically. Actually shook. Like an earthquake localized to that one room. Chandeliers swayed. People stumbled. Guards dropped to their knees. And above my head, in the empty air above me, light began to form. Not the ceiling lights. Not sunlight through windows. Light from nothing. From heaven. Cascading down like a waterfall of pure glory, surrounding me, protecting me, filling the entire throne room with brightness that made people shield their eyes. And a voice, not my voice, not any human voice, spoke. It thundered through the room like it came from everywhere at once. This is my beloved daughter, in whom I am well pleased. Whoever touches her touches the apple of my eye. The light exploded outward in a flash, and then vanished. The throne room was silent. Absolutely silent. People stood frozen. Some were weeping. Some had collapsed. The Imam's scroll had fallen from his hands. Governor Rashid had actually fainted. And the king, the powerful, terrifying king who'd ruled with an iron fist for 30 years, sat on his throne with tears streaming down his face, staring at me like he'd just seen heaven itself. I stood in the center of it all, unharmed, alive, clothed in filthy robes but wrapped in glory. Free. Finally, impossibly, supernaturally free. For what felt like an eternity, nobody moved. The throne room remained frozen in that moment, like time itself had stopped to catch its breath after what we'd all witnessed. I stood there, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst through my chest, waiting to see what would happen next. The king was the first to move. He stood slowly, like a man who'd aged 100 years in 60 seconds. His face was wet with tears he didn't bother to wipe away. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Leave us. Everyone. Out. Now. The court didn't need to be told twice. Officials scrambled for the doors. The Imam gathered his scrolls with shaking hands, backing away without taking his eyes off me, like I might explode at any moment. Governor Rashid was carried out by 2 servants, still unconscious. Within minutes, the vast throne room was empty except for me, the king, and 2 guards at the door. He walked down from his throne slowly, deliberately. I braced myself. For violence. For one last attempt to assert his power over me. But when he stopped 3 feet away, he just stared at me with eyes full of something I'd never seen before. Confusion. And beneath that, fear. Raw, existential fear. What have you done? He asked. Not angry. Genuinely asking. Like I'd detonated a bomb in the center of his worldview. What is this? I told you, I said quietly. Jesus is real. And I belong to him now. His hands were still trembling. That voice. That light. I've never. He ran his hand through his beard, pacing. 20 years. 20 years you were nothing but obedient. Quiet. Invisible. And now, he gestured at the empty air where the light had been. Now you have a God who speaks from heaven? Who shakes the earth? Who calls you daughter? He's not just my God, I said. He's offering himself to everyone. Even you. The king laughed, a broken, bitter sound. Don't you dare try to convert me. You think because your God performed some miracle, that I'll abandon everything? My faith? My kingdom? My power? But even as he said it, I could hear the doubt. The crack in his certainty. I'm not trying to convert you, I said. I'm just telling you what I know. Jesus loves you. Even after everything you've done. Even now. He's not Allah, distant and transactional. He's close. He's personal. He knows you. And he's giving you a choice. A choice, he repeated hollowly. He turned away from me, staring at his throne. The symbol of all his earthly power. The only choice I have is whether to execute you in public or in private. Whether to explain to my kingdom how my wife committed apostasy and I was merciful, or how she mysteriously disappeared. Those are my choices. You could let me go. He spun around. Let you go? Are you insane? You think I can just release you? Let you walk out of here after what just happened? Within hours, the entire kingdom would know. The story would spread like wildfire. The king's wife who renounced Islam and was protected by the Christian God. Do you have any idea what that would do to me? To my authority? To Islam itself in this region? So your pride is more important than truth? His face darkened. For a moment, I saw the old rage flash. But then it died, replaced by something worse. Resignation. You're already dead, he said quietly. You just don't know it yet. The moment you leave this palace, if I let you leave, they will hunt you. The religious authorities. The zealots. They will find you and they will kill you. And it will be slow. And painful. And public. And there will be no light from heaven to save you. Then that's my fate, I said. But at least it will be my choice. Not yours. We stared at each other. The man who'd owned me for 20 years. And the woman who'd just declared herself free. Finally, he spoke. You have until nightfall. Take whatever you can carry. No guards. No servants. No fanfare. You walk out of this palace, and you never come back. You never speak my name. You never speak of this kingdom. You disappear. If I ever hear of you again, if you ever tell this story publicly, I will have your entire family arrested and executed. Your mother. Your father. Your sisters. Everyone you've ever loved. Do you understand? I felt the threat like a physical blow. My family. I hadn't even thought about them. What this would cost them. The shame. The danger. They didn't do anything wrong. They raised an apostate, he said coldly. That's crime enough. but I'll spare them if you disappear completely. That's the deal. Your freedom for their lives. Take it or leave it. What choice did I have? I nodded. I'll go. Then go now. Before I change my mind. I ran back to my chambers, my mind racing. Nightfall. That gave me maybe 8 hours. 8 hours to pack a life. 8 hours to become a ghost. Miriam was waiting in my room, her face pale. My lady, what happened? The whole palace is talking about. I'm leaving, I said, pulling a small travel bag from the closet. Tonight. And you can't tell anyone. If they ask, you know nothing. Her eyes went wide. Leaving? Where? How? I can't tell you. The less you know, the safer you are. I started grabbing clothes, practical things, not the silk and jewels I'd accumulated. Plain abayas. Sturdy shoes. A headscarf that could hide my face. But I need help. Money. As much as you can get without raising suspicion. And food that won't spoil. She stared at me for a long moment. Then, without a word, she left. I thought maybe she'd gone to report me. Maybe this was where my escape ended, betrayed by someone I'd trusted. But 20 minutes later, she returned with a canvas bag. She emptied it on my bed. Cash. Lots of it. My savings, she said. 20 years of tips and gifts. It's yours. Miriam, I can't. You can. You will. She grabbed my hands. I heard what happened in the throne room. Everyone heard. The servants. The guards. Everyone. They're saying God Himself spoke. They're saying you were covered in light. They're saying. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They're saying maybe you're right. Maybe this Jesus is real. Tears filled my eyes. Miriam. I'm too old and too afraid to follow you, she said, squeezing my hands. But you're young. You're brave. And if your God is real, if He really called you daughter, then maybe there's hope for the rest of us. She helped me pack. Not just clothes and money, but other things. A knife for protection. Dried dates and flatbread. A compass. A water canteen. She worked quickly, efficiently, like she'd done this before. Maybe she had. Maybe I wasn't the first woman she'd helped escape a gilded cage. As sunset approached, she walked me to a side exit I'd never noticed, a servant's door that led to the back gardens. There's a car waiting beyond the east wall, she said. Driver named Rashid. He owes me a favor. He'll take you as far as the border, but after that, you're on your own. Thank you, I whispered, hugging her. Thank you for everything. Don't thank me. Just live. Really live. For all of us who can't. She pressed something into my hand, her own worn copy of the Quran. You might need this. To blend in. Until you're far enough away. I looked at it, then at her. I have my own book now. I know, she said. But the world doesn't know that yet. Stay alive first. Testify later. She was right. I tucked the Quran into my bag alongside my Bible. Then I slipped through the door into the growing darkness. The journey to the border took 6 hours of driving through the night. Rashid didn't ask questions. Didn't make conversation. Just drove, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors for pursuit. I sat in the back, wrapped in a plain black abaya, watching the palace lights disappear behind us. I was leaving everything. My name. My status. My identity. 20 years of life packed into one small bag. But I wasn't sad. I was terrified, yes. Uncertain. Stepping into complete unknown. But underneath all that, freedom. The exhilarating, dangerous freedom of belonging to myself. Of belonging to Jesus. We reached the border at 2 a.m. Rashid pulled over a mile before the checkpoint. I can't go further, he said. They'll recognize the car. You'll have to walk from here. Walk? Across the border? How? He pointed to the dark expanse of desert to our left. There's a smuggler's route. 2 miles through the sand. Crosses the border where there are no guards. People use it all the time. You just have to know where to walk. He handed me a piece of paper with crude directions. Follow this. Don't use a light. Don't make noise. And pray you don't run into border patrol. I took the paper with shaking hands. What's on the other side? A small village. Maybe 10 miles from where you cross. After that, you're in free territory. You can get a bus to the capital. From there. He shrugged. From there, you can go anywhere. Anywhere. The words sounded like a fairy tale. I got out of the car, shouldering my small bag. Rashid leaned out the window. Whatever you did to make them let you go, it must have been something extraordinary. It was, I said. God showed up. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded, like that made perfect sense. Then maybe he'll show up again out there. You're going to need him. The car disappeared into the night, taillights fading to nothing. And I was alone. In the desert. In the darkness. With nothing but a compass, some dried dates, and a promise that Jesus would never leave me. Father Michael and his wife, Sister Rose, gave me a place to stay. A small room in their church compound. They fed me. Clothed me. Asked nothing in return. For the first time in my life, I experienced grace. Real, tangible, no strings attached grace. Why are you helping me? I asked Sister Rose one day as she taught me to cook local food. You don't even know me. She smiled, stirring a pot of stew. Because 20 years ago, I was you. Running from a different kind of prison. Father Michael took me in, asked no questions, just loved me. That's what Jesus does, he turns the rescued into rescuers. You'll do the same someday. You'll help someone else who's running. She was right. I spent 6 months in that church, healing. Not just physically, though I needed that too. My body was wrecked from years of stress and the trauma of escape. But emotionally, spiritually, learning what it meant to be loved without performance, without fear, without conditions. Father Michael discipled me. Taught me about Jesus, not just the facts I'd read in the Bible, but the relationship. How to pray. How to hear God's voice. How to recognize the Holy Spirit moving inside me. How to fight spiritual battles. How to forgive people who'd hurt me, even the king, even my family, even the system that had crushed me for decades. That forgiveness part was the hardest. I wanted to hold on to my anger. It felt justified. Righteous. They'd earned my hatred. But Father Michael said something I'll never forget: unforgiveness is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. You're the only one it hurts. Jesus didn't set you free so you could build a new prison out of bitterness. Let it go. Give it to him. It took months. Lots of tears. Lots of prayers where I yelled at God about how unfair it all was. But slowly, painfully, I learned to release it. To hand the king to Jesus for judgment. To hand my parents to Jesus for their choices. To hand the entire system to Jesus and trust that he was a better judge than I could ever be. And when I finally did, when I finally unclenched my fists and let the bitterness drain away, I felt lighter. Like I'd been carrying a 100-pound weight I didn't even realize was there. After 6 months, I started working. Father Michael connected me with a Christian organization that helped refugees and escaped women. They gave me a job, administrative work, helping other women navigate the legal system, find housing, access resources. It didn't pay much, but it paid enough. I moved into my own tiny apartment. Started building a life. But more than that, I started telling my story. At first, just to other women in similar situations. Muslim women who'd encountered Jesus and were terrified of what that meant. Women running from forced marriages. Women escaping abuse. Women who thought they were alone, that no one understood, that God couldn't possibly love someone as broken as them. I would sit with them in coffee shops, in shelters, in safe houses, and I would tell them what happened to me. About the palace. About the despair. About finding the Bible. About Jesus appearing in my prison cell. About the light in the throne room. About the voice from heaven calling me daughter. And I would watch their faces change. Watch hope flicker to life in eyes that had been dead. Watch them start to believe that maybe, just maybe, God saw them too. Loved them too. Had a plan for them too. That's when I realized, this is why Jesus saved me. Not just for my own sake. But so I could be a witness. So I could stand in front of other women drowning in the same ocean I'd nearly drowned in and say, there is a lifeboat. His name is Jesus. And he will pull you out if you let him. About a year ago, someone suggested I record my testimony. Put it on YouTube. Let it reach beyond the small circles I was speaking in. I was terrified. What if the king found it? What if he made good on his threat about my family? What if I was putting myself in danger again? But then I remembered what Jesus said to me in that purification chamber: tell the truth. Leave the results to me. So I did. I recorded my story. I changed some details to protect people. I didn't show my face. I used a voice modifier. But I told the truth about Jesus. About what he'd done. About the miracle in the throne room. About freedom on the other side of surrender. And the video went viral. Hundreds of thousands of views. Then millions. Comments flooded in from all over the world. Muslim women saying they'd had similar experiences. Ex-Muslims who'd found Jesus. Christians who were encouraged in their faith. Even some Muslims who were curious, asking questions, wanting to know more about this Jesus who performed miracles. Of course, there was hate too. Death threats. Accusations of lying. People calling me a Western agent, a fake, a deceiver. But underneath all the noise, I could hear the Spirit saying, "Keep going. This is working. Lives are being changed." So I kept recording. Kept telling stories. Kept pointing people to Jesus. And here I am now, making this video for you. Whoever you are. Wherever you are. Whatever cage you're trapped in. Let me talk directly to you now. Because I didn't go through all of that just to tell a nice story. I went through it so you could find the same freedom I found. If you're a Muslim woman watching this, maybe in secret, maybe afraid someone will catch you, I need you to hear me. You are not crazy for questioning. You are not evil for doubting. You are not alone in feeling like something is missing. That emptiness you feel? That's not your fault. You were made for relationship with God, real relationship, not religious obligation. And Jesus is offering you that relationship right now. He doesn't care that you've prayed to Allah your whole life. He doesn't care that you've made mistakes. He doesn't care that you're not pure enough or good enough or holy enough. He loves you exactly as you are. Broken. Messy. Desperate. That's his specialty. If you're in an abusive marriage, trapped by culture or family or law, Jesus sees you. He knows your pain. He's not okay with what's happening to you. And he wants to set you free. It might not look like my freedom. It might not be immediate. But if you call on his name, he will answer. He will make a way where there is no way. If you're a man watching this, maybe you're Muslim, maybe you're searching, maybe you're just curious, you need to know that Jesus isn't just for women. He's for everyone. He's for the powerful and the powerless. He's for the king on the throne and the prisoner in the cell. He's offering you the same thing he offered me, relationship. Forgiveness. Freedom from the burden of trying to earn your way to God. You can't earn it. No amount of prayers, no amount of fasting, no amount of good deeds will ever be enough. The scales will never balance because we're all broken. We all fail. We all fall short. But Jesus doesn't ask you to balance the scales. He asks you to accept that he already balanced them for you. On the cross. With his blood. With his death and resurrection. He paid the price you couldn't pay. And now he's holding out his hand saying, "It's done. It's finished. Come home." If you're a Christian watching this, maybe you've been comfortable for too long. Maybe you've forgotten what it cost people like me to follow Jesus. Let my story wake you up. Remind you that there are millions of people around the world who can't worship freely. Who risk their lives to read the Bible. Who gather in secret to pray. Who lose everything when they confess Jesus as Lord. Pray for them. Support them. Don't take your freedom for granted. And don't be silent. Tell your story. Tell his story. Because the world is full of people dying in golden cages who don't even know there's a key. Now I want to give you a chance to respond. Because that's what Jesus does, he tells you the truth, and then he gives you a choice. He never forces, never manipulates, never coerces. He just offers, and waits, and loves you whether you say yes or no. But I'm begging you to say yes. Because I know what's on the other side of that yes. I've lived it. And it's so much better than anything you're holding on to right now. If you want to receive Jesus, if you want what I have, if you want freedom and forgiveness and a God who calls you by name, you can pray with me right now. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be in Arabic or any special language. God hears your heart. Just talk to him. Be honest. Let me pray first, and then you can pray in your own words. Jesus, I don't have this all figured out. I don't understand everything. But I know I need you. I know I can't save myself. I believe you died for me. I believe you rose from the dead. I believe you're offering me freedom. So I'm saying yes. I'm giving you my life, all of it, the broken parts and the scared parts and the parts I'm ashamed of. I'm asking you to be my Lord, my Savior, my God. Come into my heart. Make me new. Teach me how to follow you. I'm yours. Amen. If you prayed that, if you meant it, then welcome to the family. You are now a child of God. A daughter. A son. Loved. Chosen. Free. Your sins are forgiven. Your name is written in heaven. And nothing can separate you from the love of Christ. I need to be honest with you about something. Following Jesus might cost you everything. It cost me my marriage, my family, my home, my country, my identity. I can never go back. I live in hiding. I may never see my mother again. I may die young because someone decides I deserve death for apostasy. But I'm telling you with every fiber of my being, it's worth it. All of it. Every single cost. Because what I gained is infinitely more valuable than what I lost. I gained Jesus. I gained freedom. I gained purpose. I gained joy that doesn't depend on circumstances. I gained peace that surpasses understanding. I gained a family, a global family of believers who love me not because I'm useful but because I'm their sister. I gained hope. I gained a future. I gained life, real, abundant, eternal life. The palace was a tomb. A beautiful, luxurious tomb. And Jesus called me out of it the same way he called Lazarus out of his grave. Come forth. Live. So I came forth. And I'm living. Really living. For the first time in 37 years. And you can too. Before I end this, I want to leave you with one final thought. One final verse that has carried me through the last 3 years. It's from Romans 8, and it's become my anthem. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation, will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Do you hear that? Nothing can separate you from His love. Not your past. Not your mistakes. Not your family. Not your culture. Not your government. Not your circumstances. Not even death itself. His love is unbreakable, unstoppable, unconditional. And it's yours. Right now. This moment. All you have to do is receive it. So what are you going to do? Are you going to stay in the cage because it's familiar? Because it's safe? Because leaving is terrifying? Or are you going to take Jesus' hand and walk out into the unknown, trusting that He's leading you somewhere better? I chose freedom. And I've never regretted it. Not for one single second. Choose freedom. Choose Jesus. Choose life. And if you do, I can't wait to meet you one day. Maybe not in this life, maybe in the next. But we will meet. We'll embrace. We'll worship together. We'll share stories about how Jesus saved us from different kinds of death. And we'll spend eternity marveling at the God who loved us enough to come down from heaven, die on a cross, and rise again so that people like you and me could be called His children. Until then, I'm praying for you. Whoever you are. Wherever you are. Whatever you're facing. I'm praying that the same God who appeared in my prison cell appears in yours. That the same Jesus who stopped fire with His hand reaches out and stops whatever is destroying you. That the same Spirit who gave me courage in a throne room gives you courage in your impossible moment. You are seen. You are known. You are loved. And you are not alone. Never, ever alone. Come to Jesus. He's been waiting for you your whole life. If this testimony touched you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Someone in your life needs to hear this story. Someone is trapped in their own palace, their own cage, their own prison, and this might be the key that unlocks their door. For resources on how to follow Jesus, how to leave Islam safely, or how to get help if you're in danger, check the links in the description below. And if you prayed that prayer with me, if you gave your life to Jesus today, please reach out. Send me a message. Let me connect you with people who can help you take the next steps. You don't have to walk this journey alone. God bless you. Jesus loves you. And I'm so grateful you watched until the end. This is just the beginning. Your resurrection story starts now.